So in today's video, we're going to be doing Lilith. So we've done pretty much all the planets. We've done Saturn, Mercury, Uranus. I believe I've done Venus, Mars, and yeah. And then the Sun and the Moon, we can do that at different times. So we might do the Sun and the Moon after we do Lilith. All right. So Lilith, a little explanation with Lilith. Lilith represents your primal energy. It represents your it represents the divine feminine. It's like your primal ancient instinct energy. You know what I mean? And this can come in passion and in all forms, sexual or just raw passion. That could be all different types, you know what I mean? Anything that gets the blood pumping, that's pretty much Lilith energy. And one thing that gets the blood pumping is something that you're ashamed of. You know what I mean? So that's the thing with Lilith energy. It's like it's something that you like to do, but people might make you feel ashamed also. Like you might go through experiences where you feel like, oh, I need to hide that away from people. So, but at the same time, you're here to embrace that energy within this lifetime. You know what I mean? So you're going to go through a lot of experiences that make you feel like, you know what I mean? Like, oh, I cannot really express this or show this to people. But eventually, you'll dive deeper into that energy and you actually learn to embrace it if you be open with it. And that's what it represents because the mythical story, I believe, if I'm not if I'm correct, is she lived with Adam, right? Lilith was like Eve or before Eve, or she represented Eve, and she was married to Adam, um but she wouldn't submit. So she ran away from the Garden of Eden and apparently like had sex with demons and gave birth to demons and things like that. But that's just the mythology. But what it's really saying is that it's when your emotions leaves its like the logical part of your brain. You know what I mean? And when you leave that, you're just in your primal energy. You're just in your primal emotions. You know what I'm saying? There's no form of logic there. So that's what it represents by her running away from Adam and having sex with demons. It's just talking about your people might call it like your lower energy, like root chakra energy. But it's really, but that's how we all got born here. You know what I'm saying? So don't see high vibration and low vibration as something that is good or bad. Like, don't get out of that context and see more like high vibration and low vibration is both needed. Just like you have an upper part of your body and you also have the lower part of your body. So both aspects is needed in creation in life. You know what I mean? You create with your head and you also create with your phallus. You know what I'm saying? So that's what it's talking about. Lilith represents your primal energy, primal emotions. You know what I'm saying? And sometimes you might feel ashamed because you feel naked when you're doing that thing. You know what I mean? And people might make you feel ashamed of it, but it's something you like and you eventually learn to embrace. And Lilith represents her rebelling against Adam and being her true self, being her true divine feminine, you know? So that's very important. It's very important to know that you have to embrace your Lilith energy, wherever it is in your natal chart. You have to embrace that, you know? You have to learn that it's going to be hard for you to be that initially, but eventually you will be able to engulf into embody that energy and actually have a very powerful sorry, have a very powerful magnetic energy when you tap into your Lilith energy. So without any further ado, let's get into it. So if you have Lilith in Aries, that means a lot of your experiences you were made to feel ashamed of your passion, the things that you're passionate about, the things that brings you impulse. You know what I'm saying? Or even sometimes you felt ashamed of how aggressive you might be or how impulsive you might be, and people made you feel bad for that. But you're here in this lifetime to embody that energy and be and embrace that energy of Aries, embrace the energy of um your impulse, because you never know that that impulse that you might have might actually bring you into good opportunities. You know what I'm saying? It might actually bring you into good circumstances. So by you having Lilith in Aries, you might feel ashamed. People might make you feel like, oh, why are you so aggressive, or why do you feel, why are you so passionate about something, why you should just not do that. You know what I mean? And you might feel bad, like, damn, maybe, yeah, maybe I shouldn't be like that. Like, maybe I shouldn't be passionate or aggressive about my goals or my ambition, or just aggressive. Maybe sometimes you need to be aggressive in certain situations, but people make you feel bad for that. So by having Lilith and Aries, you're here to embrace that energy and be proud of that. Be proud of your impulsive nature. Be proud of your um individual nature, who you are as an individual identity. Be proud of that. Be proud of being selfish. You know, anytime you have like North Node in Aries or Saturn in Aries or like Lilith in Aries, it's like it's pushing you to be in that energy. You know, it's pushing you to be in the energy of boldness and uh, impulsiveness. I wouldn't say like, yeah, impulsive, because certain situations you might have to be. You know what I mean? You might only get an experience once in a lifetime, so you got to be passionate in that experience. So yeah, that'll be Lilith in Aries. So you might feel, you know, initially, people might make you feel ashamed for who you are, your identity, you being your individual self and just wanting to do your own thing and walk, doing your own thing and doing your own path. You know what I mean? But eventually, that's something you have to embody and be proud of. You know what I mean? Don't feel ashamed of it. Lilith in Taurus. Lilith in Taurus would be, people made you feel ashamed for taking your time with things. You know what I mean? Being practical, being stable. People always made you like, oh, why? So people might have called you lazy or something like that. You know what I mean? Having Lilith in Taurus. You know what I mean? People made you feel bad and ashamed for resting. You know what I mean? Or just taking your time. Being slow and steady, because that's what Taurus energy is all about. Slow and steady wins the way. Slow and steady wins the race. You know what I'm saying? Slow and steady wins the race with Tauruses. You know what I mean? People made you feel ashamed for also your beauty, because Taurus has Venus energy there. You know what I'm saying? So just the way you spoke or the way you express yourself, or just your values, you valuing your beauty, like your physical makeup, people made you feel ashamed for that. You know what I mean? So you might have had like body dysmorphia, or like you just feel ashamed of how you look, or the things that you value, the things that you hold. So you might have, you know, initially grew up in a environment where you didn't really have much, you know what I mean? And, you might have felt ashamed of that, or people made you feel ashamed of that. But eventually you need to be proud of who you are and just be proud of your inner beauty, you know what I mean? And that would express itself in the outer world. And eventually you'll start to accumulate valuable things that will actually accumulate into money, you know what I mean? And tangible finance. So it's all about embracing that beauty. Like, you know what? Yeah, it's okay. I might not have it right now, because Taurus is all about slow and steady wins the race. But you know what I mean? I'm going to be on the come up. I just got to be patient. I just got to keep working on myself. And that keyword working, because Taurus is fixed earth. So you got to keep working, 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 working before it can become something foundational, something solid that you can be fixated on. You know what I mean? So yeah, that's Lilith in Taurus. Lilith in Gemini. So Lilith in Gemini, you feel ashamed of you speaking a lot. You know what I mean? So you like to speak your voice. You like to voice your opinions. You know what I mean? You like to communicate with other people. You like to make little banter jokes and things like that. And people made you feel ashamed of that. So people might be like, "Oh, you talk too much." You know what I mean? All you do is talk. All you do is talk. You never do anything. So you kind of felt reserved, and you might be like, "Oh, okay, I don't want to talk about certain things. I don't want to be inquisitive about certain things. Let me just keep to myself." You know what I mean? So you might feel ashamed of that. But but you haven't lived in Gemini, eventually you have to like break past that barrier. You got to break past that fear. You know what I mean? Because if you don't, that might stop you from getting to certain places. You never know who you might meet. You never know who you might see and talk to and communicate with, and might put you in certain positions. You know what I'm saying? So having Lilith in Gemini, fight that temptation to feel like you have to, quiet yourself and not really speak your mind. You know what I mean? Obviously, learn when to say certain things at certain times. You know what I mean? But you should also still be yourself and learn how to think freely, because once, if you cannot speak freely, you cannot think freely. You know what I mean? They both go hand in hand. To be able to think, you got to be able to speak. So having lived in Gemini, you might have felt embarrassed, or you know what I mean, like people made you feel embarrassed or made you feel ashamed for just you speaking or the way you spoke. Maybe you started a lot, you know what I mean? So you had an embarrassment of that. So you have to learn how to be confident in your speech and in your thinking, and eventually people will respect you for that, and they'll have no choice but to want to hear what you have to say. Lilith in Cancer. So if you have Lilith in Cancer, um that's, people made you feel, you feel ashamed for your nurturing energy, you feel ashamed for your emotional state. So whenever you express your emotions, people made you feel ashamed of that. So people will be like, you know, like, why are you expressing that emotions? Like, you're always in the mood, like no one cares, you know what I mean? Or just like, oh bro, get over that, or you know, you're so emotional, you know what I mean? So you kind of feel ashamed, or you feel embarrassed for showing your emotions. You felt ashamed or you felt embarrassed for being nurturing and caring. Like, you went through experiences where people laughed at you because of that. You know what I mean? Having Lilith and Cancer. So, or people made you feel ashamed for having just a soft side. You know what I mean? Having like a little soft side, like having a little, like you couldn't really express your emotions like that because you were scared that you were too vulnerable. You know what I'm saying? Having Lilith in Cancer. So you're here to actually, you know, be proud of who you are. Be proud of your emotions. You know what I'm saying? Be proud of how you feel. You never know where that might take you and who you might also help in life just by expressing your emotions. A lot of people might be like, damn, I always felt like that, but I never had the guts to feel that way or express that emotion. But this person did it and I'm inspired by that. You know what I'm saying? So it's very important, even, or just being nurturing. Certain people, you never know who you might nurture might really help them in a very, you know, beautiful way where they might want to help you in other ways. So never feel embarrassed or feel ashamed for your caring side. Never feel embarrassed or ashamed for your nurturing side or your emotional state. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? Never feel embarrassed for whatever you emotionally gravitate towards and like to express. Yep. That's Lilith in Cancer. Lilith in, is it Lilith in Leo, right? Lilith in Leo. If you go Lilith in Leo, a lot of people made you feel ashamed for just your character, who you are, the way you express yourself, the way you like to have fun. You know, your inner child, because Leo, that's what it's like, your inner child, right? It's just the way it's what brings you happiness. People, a lot of people made you feel ashamed for that. A lot of people made you feel like you couldn't express yourself in a fun, charismatic way. And whenever you did, people made you like, it's like, you know, you were embarrassed. People like laughed at you for doing that. You know what I mean? And that really like could have hurt your inner child. Um it can really what's the word? I'm trying to think of the word. It starts with a D. Like it can, I pretty much defeat. You can defeat your inner child, but you can always resurrect it, just like the sun. You know what I mean? The sun is always resurrected. So you want to resurrect your light. You want to resurrect your inner child. You want to resurrect your expression, your character of who you are, and never feel ashamed of that. You know, you might always want to hide who you are and hide your character or who and how you express yourself, but that's who you are. It's your character. It's your Leo. It's your ego. You know what I mean? We're all here to express our ego. So it's very important that you don't allow people to make you feel ashamed for your inner child or your expression or how you uh like how you like to lighten the load, how you like to lighten up the mood. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, never feel ashamed for that. Never feel embarrassed. You know what I mean? You might have went through experiences where you know, you are maybe at a school play or something like that, and as you were expressing yourself, you slipped in something and everyone laughed at you. So you feel ashamed. You're like, nah, I'll never show that part of myself ever again. Because when I did that, I was so vulnerable and people laughed at me. You know what I mean? So you want to be, and that might, it might hurt your ego, but you want to resurrect it and be like, you know what? I'm gonna take that experience and make it into something positive. I might even do a play or a comedy play about how what that happened. You know what I mean? Improvise or something like that. Just a little example, but you take your losses into wins. You know what I'm saying? And because it's very important that you want to express your inner child and your inner ego. Having Lilith in Virgo. Let me get a little drink real quick. Lilith in Virgo. Having Lilith in Virgo, um, a lot of experiences or people made you feel ashamed for your health, for your little nitpicking. You know what I mean? So you like to analyze a lot of things, and a lot of people like shamed you for that, or or you went through a lot of experiences that made you feel like you shouldn't share that part of yourself. You know what I mean? So just you being able to express yourself in a communicative way made people like it might have rubbed people the wrong way. You know what I mean? People might feel like, oh, who does this person think they are, always analyzing us and thinking like this? So you might feel bad for that, or you might just overthink a lot. You know what I mean? You might overthink a lot where you think you embarrass yourself in certain experiences because you thought too much. You know what I mean? So you never had the time to deliver. So what else? Because Mercury, Virgo is Mercury, internal Mercury. So yeah, it's just a lot of chit chatting. Maybe like you just certain sometimes you might say certain things that embarrassed you or made you feel embarrassed or made you not want to express that part of yourself. You know what I mean? Or you just felt embarrassed or felt ashamed whenever you try to help people because that's service energy. So whenever you try to help people, people made you feel bad for that or people made you feel ashamed for that. You know what I mean? And that like kind of took a hit to your ego where you felt like, damn, maybe I shouldn't really be helping people like that. That could happen. Or maybe you insert yourself into certain situations where you didn't have to. You know what I mean? Because certain times Virgo does that, where they try to help where they don't have to, and then the situation, the scenario backfired on you, and then you felt embarrassed of that. But that shouldn't be something to destroy who you are, because at the same time, it's good to still like you just have to find a healthy way to analyze things. So actually find practical things to analyze things, not just be an airhead. You know what I mean? But and when I say airhead, I don't mean that in a bad or insultive way. When I say airhead, I mean like because I'm a Virgo rising, so I'm speaking for myself. Like sometimes you might get too much in your head, and you might not have time to do all the things that you want to do. You know what I'm saying? So you want to be more organized and find ways to practicalize things so that when you do speak or when you do think and when you do whatever you are of service, it's something that is coming back in a more healthy and positive way. You know what I mean? And yeah, sometimes people made you even feel ashamed for just how healthy you are. You know, the way you eat. You might be vegan, you might be vegetarian, or you just have your own special way of diet, or you have your own special way of organizing things, or you have your own special way of um, doing your daily habits or your daily routine and whatever you like to do. And people made you like, people laughed at you for doing that. You know what I mean? So maybe you like to pack your school lunch in a certain way and people laughed at you for that. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? So they, you know, like you might have been peculiar or different to them, but it's just the way you express your Virgo energy. You like to compartmentalize. Compartmentalize. I don't think I said that word, but you know what I mean. Compartment. You know what I mean? Structure things. You like to do it in your own routine, your own habit way. You like to do it in your own unique way, and people made you feel ashamed for that or made you feel embarrassed of that. So you're here to embrace that. Embrace that service energy. Don't feel bad for servicing. Just service the right things in people. Don't feel bad for analyzing. Just analyze the right things in people that want to be analyzed. You know what I mean? And do your own routine and your own habits in your own unique way, and be proud of that. Lilith in what is it? So we did Virgo. Lilith in what's it called? Libra. Yes. So Lilith in Libra. Having Lilith in Libra, a lot of people made you feel ashamed and embarrassed for just the way you like to network. You know what I mean? Or your relationships, the relationships you had. People, you kind of felt either you embarrassed or people made you feel embarrassed for it, or maybe people made you feel bad for it. You know what I mean? You know what I'm saying? So or also your beauty, because Venus energy is there. So people might have made you feel like you cannot be yourself and express that beauty. You know what I mean? It was too much. You know what I mean? People was like, oh, why do you express yourself like that? You know what I mean? Why are you so lighthearted, and why you just, you know what I mean? So you gotta realize that you're not here to feel bad of expressing your beauty. You're not here to feel bad of expressing your way that you like to communicate. You know what I mean? Because Libra is air, cardinal air. So the way you like to initiate partnerships, you shouldn't feel embarrassed about that. It's just who you are. The way you like to relate to people is just, that's how you like to relate to people, and that's just who you are. You know what I mean? And you shouldn't feel embarrassed about that. It's just everyone has their own unique way of relating to people. Everyone has their own unique way of partnership, and you just have to embrace your version of that. You know, and embrace your version of your beauty, of who you are, and what makes you feel um, dignified when you go out into the public. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, never feel embarrassed of your beauty. Never feel embarrassed of how you express yourself when you communicate. The people you like to be friends with, I guess it's just who you are, you know. And the right person will understand that if they have that type of knowledge. But yeah, what else, Libra? Yeah, it's mostly partnership and beauty pretty much when it comes to Libras. You know what I'm saying? And the things that they value. So whatever you value is what you value. And everyone has to, what, you know what I mean? You shouldn't feel ashamed for that. People might have made you feel ashamed for what you value and what you think is beautiful and what you think is a form of relationship. So don't feel embarrassed about that. Lilith in Scorpio. Lilith in Scorpio. Scorpio is home here, right? Because Lilith has that Pluto energy. So Scorpio is home here, and you're comfortable with your sexuality. You're comfortable with expressing that primal energy. You're comfortable with that. You know what I'm saying? Uh you might have felt ashamed or feel embarrassed, and people might have made you feel embarrassed or feel ashamed for your sexual expression, the way you express your sexual energy, the way you express your intimate energy. So you might be scared to be intimate. You might be afraid to be intimate, because remember, Lilith has to do with being afraid to express that energy. So you like to keep them all within, but you have to like rebel against feeling embarrassed of that energy and actually embody it. And that's when you become powerful, right? Like the divine feminine. So having Lilith in Scorpio, it's home here. So you feel grounded when you're expressing your sexual energy. You feel grounded when you're expressing your power energy. You feel grounded when you're expressing your primal energy in whatever formal way that you like to do that. You know what I mean? Because this is the home of the taboo. So there are many ways to express primal energy. It's not just sex. As long as there is passion to it, it's, you know, it's primal energy. Um, so having Lilith in Scorpio, yeah, you initially, or through experiences, you went through experiences where you might have felt embarrassed, or you try not to be embarrassed when it comes to sexual encounters. You try not to embarrass yourself when it comes to intimacy, you know, emotionally, because intimacy can be emotionally or physically. So you're scared sometimes of intimacy because of certain experiences that you've went through in life, and you felt like maybe you shouldn't open up that much in certain scenarios or certain circumstances. So you might be more closed off, you know what I mean? And certain experiences might make you closed off and be afraid or ashamed of ever opening up like that and having that deep connection with someone or people. But at the same time, it's that Phoenix energy. You got to resurrect yourself and feel like, okay, at the end of the day, that might have happened and those experiences happened, but it taught me a lesson. So you have to learn how to transform and not be fixated on that emotion and that pain. Because if you're fixated on it, then you never get the time to transform and rise as the phoenix. So if you learn the lesson from that experience and actually also feel it, feel the emotion, feel the experience, you know what I mean? Feel the intimacy, feel the pain or whatever you felt from those experiences that was deep and connected and plutonic. And once you feel that, learn the lessons and learn the wisdom from it, and then transform. And then that's when you ascend and become the powerful divine feminine, because you're home here. Scorpio's home in Pluto. Pluto's home in Scorpio, and Scorpio's home in Lilith. So By you embracing your sexual energy, embracing your powerful energy, embracing your internal drive, whatever you're passionate about, and don't feel ashamed of it, that's when you become powerful and you have a powerful magnetic aura around you. So now we go Lilith in Sagittarius. Lilith in Sagittarius. So people made you feel embarrassed or ashamed of your religious or spiritual views, your philosophy, the way you teach, the way you like to express your grand self. You know what I'm saying? The way, yeah, the way you pretty much like to experience things, the way you like to even travel. So you might have traveled and had very embarrassing moments or embarrassing experiences, or very even crazy, deadly experiences. You know what I mean? But at the same time, that should not shy you away of traveling and going through different experiences and learning about different cultures and different food and things like that, and different locations and geographical sites and things like that. You should still embody that. You might have went through experiences or people made you feel bad for traveling, like, oh, you're always traveling, you're always doing this, but never feel bad about it. Always feel like there's always something new to learn, there's always something new to expand on. And that's the most important thing. You know what I'm saying? You want to learn how to, especially with Sagittarius energy, you have to be free. And people might have made you feel embarrassed for your free, loving, charismatic self or expression. So the way you express yourself, people made you feel bad. Like, why do you express yourself like that? Like, you know what I mean? You need to relax. But it's just your Sagittarius energy, and that's just who you are. You know what I mean? It's just the way you express yourself. Also, you love to teach and you love to, debate with people. And people might have made you feel bad, like, oh, we don't talk about that here, that's taboo. We don't talk about this philosophy, or we don't talk about this religious belief, or spiritual teaching and things like that. So you felt bad and you kind of hid away from expressing that part of yourself and teaching and traveling internally or physically. But or you went through very embarrassing moments when you did that, and people made you feel embarrassed for it. But you should not be embarrassed. You should embrace that. Embrace that energy, that free, loving spirit energy of who you are as a Sagittarius. And the more you do that, the more people eventually learn to understand that, okay, this is the type of person that's actually happy in life because they're being their true self. And they might be a bit preachy, but there's a lot of knowledge and wisdom from what they're saying. It's just we have to listen. You know what I mean? So it goes both hand in hand. But yeah, never feel embarrassed for the way you see life and the way you philosophize life and experiences, because the way you see it, someone else might see it differently. But at the end of the day, the most important thing is, did you gain a lesson from it? Did you gain wisdom from it? Because that's the Sagittarius energy. They always have to gain wisdom and lesson and knowledge from their experiences. Lilith in Capricorn. So Lilith in Capricorn, people made you feel bad, or you might have went through very embarrassing experience, embarrassing moments when it comes to um your expression of, sorry, when it comes to your expression of, like, because Capricorn has to do with cardinal Earth. So whatever you found was your structure, your form of ID when it comes to stability. People made you feel bad for that. So you might have came up with business ideas. Like you might have been in I think it's called Shark Tank, where you bring up ideas of, like, innovations or ideas of businesses and things like that. And people probably rejected your business ideas. People probably rejected your company and things like that, like Jeff Bezos. You know what I mean? He started from a basement. So that's that Lilith in Capricorn energy, where people might have been like, shut off your foundation or your business idea and be like, man, that's not gonna work, bro. Why are you even trying to do that? You know what I'm saying? And then you might be like, damn, yeah, maybe they're right. Like, maybe I shouldn't express that part of myself. Maybe I shouldn't be a business minded type of person. You know what I'm saying? I shouldn't really be thinking about how I can come up on something, on a foundation or on a structure. And by doing that, you might lose out on opportunities, or you might lose out on being very innovative and being very creative in who you are as a person. So it's very important that you embrace your Lilith energy when it comes to Capricorn energy. If you have an idea, just speak it. Think about it, build on it. You know, don't feel bad for it. People might have made you feel bad for your business ideas, or made you feel like your idea or your company was never going to grow. So those things can get to you and it might destroy your dream. But you have to believe in yourself and keep going, you know? And when you believe in yourself, eventually people are going to want to be part of that business. You know what I mean? They're going to want to be part of that company once they start seeing it very successful. So it's very important that you stick true to your dreams, you stick true to who you are and what you want to achieve in life. And the more you do that, the more you come up with very brilliant ideas, brilliant business company ideas that would actually expand and will become multi-billion dollar industries, just like Amazon, you know, just like Microsoft and things like that. Lilith in Aquarius. You having Lilith in Aquarius, you went through experiences that made you feel ashamed or embarrassed when you were more of like the people person. So when you like to stand out, how was it? When you like to stand out in the crowd, people made you feel bad for that. So even though you were still among people and you're chilling with people and you're doing your own thing, because you were so unique or because you were doing your own thing amongst the crowd, people made you feel bad for that. Like, why are you doing that? We do things this way. We do things that way. You know what I'm saying? And you were like, damn, like I know you guys do it that way, but I just feel like doing it my way. And people made you feel bad for that. Or people made you feel ashamed for that, and made it feel like you're crazy or you're doing something wrong. But you have to realize that you're an Aquarius, so you're futuristic. Eventually, people are going to catch on. So at first, people might think that it's weird. People might think that, oh, this doesn't make sense. But eventually, if you keep sticking true to who you are and your identity of who you are as yourself, and you keep sticking to that fixated thought of who you are, eventually people are going to gravitate towards your energy and understand where you're coming from. It just might take some time, but that's okay. That's the part of being futuristic. It's you setting the course so that eventually people can be able to jump on the horse and travel to wherever they need to travel to, you know? So don't feel ashamed for your own individualistic way of expression or your own individualistic way of thinking. People might have made you feel weird or made you feel embarrassed for just your uniqueness. You know what I mean? It might be different. It might be, yeah, but it might be weird. It might be different, but that's the whole point, right? That's the whole point of creativity, of something new. It's not understandable initially, but eventually it's going to get there. So you just got to be patient. So yeah, don't feel bad for who you are and your identity, and just always stick to yourself, and be true to yourself. And eventually, people are gonna like you for who, and people are gonna identify you for being that unique person. And that's where your power is at. It's actually that's what Lilith is represents. Your power is actually in the things that you feel ashamed of. All right. And last but not least, we go Lilith in Pisces. Lilith in Pisces. Having Lilith in Pisces, you were ashamed. I mean, sorry, yeah, you were ashamed, or you were made ashamed, or you had embarrassing moments when you were um, emotionally giving. So each time you emotionally gave to people, or you try to connect with people emotionally, you had a lot of experiences that made you like full of regrets. It made you feel like, "Oh, I should have never done that, or I should have never connected in this way." So because the things that you connected to, or the people, places that, or things that you connected to, made you, it gave you a deep wound where you didn't want to do that anymore. You didn't want to open up and emotionally connect with people. You didn't want to be as empathetic with people as you wanted to be. But you're here to realize that you have to, or also people might have shut down your dreams, your visions, the things that you were creatively into. You know what I mean? So maybe you do artwork or you do some form of creativity. People made you feel embarrassed for that, or you feel embarrassed when you express these things, and you wanted to hide away and do these things in private. You know what I'm saying? But it's very important that you embrace that, and you embrace your creativity, you embrace your emotional depth, you embrace your emotional maturity, um, your emotional intelligence, you embrace your imagination, your visions, your creativity, your dreams. So you might have came and told people like, "Oh, I have these dreams and stuff," and maybe you felt people laughed at you for it, or maybe people just didn't understand it, so you just shut out, or you caved in. um so it's very important that you express your emotions, you express your creativity, because eventually this is what's going to make you powerful. Also being able to rest. A lot of people made you feel bad or ashamed for resting, because 12th house has to do with resting, relaxing in private, the subconscious world, the sleeping world. So you might have felt embarrassed for that. You might have felt ashamed that you were always resting. People made you feel like you weren't doing enough. So it's very important that you also take time to rest, embrace your creativity, embrace your emotional, empathic uh, abilities. And the more you do these things, eventually you become powerful for that, and people will know you for that. People will gravitate towards you for your visions and your creativity and your emotional warmth. So yeah, guys, that is pretty much it. Hope you guys gained something new. And until next time, I'll catch you soon.